You guys are home of the RVRS fund, which is the reverse cap-weighted U.S. stock fund. How do you go from selling that to financial education in Detroit?
Well, it's a part of what we do, and what we're trying to do is counter the fact that the incentive structure in the financial services industry is tied entirely to the amount of assets that you have. That's typically how people get paid. So what you're left with is a system where people with the most amount of assets, like institutional investors, have the most amount of resources and help, and people with the least amount of assets, or people that are not even in the industry or are unbanked, are left with no financial advice, no financial literacy and education. We want to counter that.
Tyrone, I want to bring you into the conversation. You're an advisor who uses some ETFs. You're familiar with it, but now you're working with an ETF issuer. What's driving your participation here?
So, again, having grown up in a financially illiterate household is very important to me. Also, when you look at the statistics that are out there, right, the American Public Education Foundation just put out a press release saying that lack of financial literacy is a crisis in this country, right? And I know that firsthand. But more importantly, it's time for financial services, especially financial advisors, to get in front of this, to get into schools, to get proximate to people in need. And I want to lead that charge.
Now, how long into the education program do you think it'll be before you bring up ETFs? Because we talk a lot about how it's an accessible investment for those who are already in the market. How accessible a concept is it for people who are getting into the market?
Right. Well, I'll make it very clear that will probably be the graduated class. What we want to do is really start boots on the ground, starting in elementary school, right, undergirding teachers and helping teachers. So this will be a full-blown out financial literacy and education. So financial literacy to get into schools, education for the working class people, that may be more of a conversation for ETFs, and for teachers that are teaching it at a more graduated level. So there'll be levels to how we actually institute this and what we actually speak to, but I'm certain ETFs will be at the end of that, but it will be in the discussion.
So it's clear what this project means to both of you, Phil. How did you meet up with Tyrone? How did you hook up with him on this project?
We actually met through social media, and then we ended up being on a couple podcasts together. Eventually we were at conferences together, speaking on stage, and it really blossomed into now a partnership and a friendship. And I think it's really indicative of where we are in the financial services space, where the asset management firm of the future does not look like the asset management firm of the present. And it's going to take time, but these types of initiatives, these types of relationships, the type of marketing that we're doing, being focused with online and building our authenticity and our brand, that will pay off in the long run.
Yeah, something that the smaller shops have to do that the bigger shops perhaps are a little slower to do. Tyrone, speaking of social media, you have a pretty big presence on social media. You've got yourself a lot of engagement as well. You post these regular post-workout Periscope videos, and we have a couple here. Let's pull it up right now to show everyone just a sample of what it is that you post.
The first asset class in history led by retail. Yes, the first asset class where you don't need a broker and you can do it yourself and you can buy $5 worth or $20. That's all great once you learn and you understand. But most people in this country are dying for anything to pull them out of their financial peril. Trust me, my parents still play the lottery.
And of course, it makes sense that you're doing this post-workout because it's part of who you are. You were a 2004 Olympic trials qualifier in the 400 meter. It's very much a part of your persona. Not everyone can pull this off, this authentic version of themselves on social media. How would you advise someone in this financial space who wants to do that and wants it to be an effective way of bringing about information?
Tell your story. I think you have to be authentic in the era now where everything is about fintech and robo. You have to humanize yourself. You have to put yourself out there so people can engage with you and understand that there is something beyond the suit. And for me, I don't hide behind it. I had a very difficult life, and I mentioned there that there's always this narrative of the lottery is bad, and the lottery has kept a roof over my family's head, right? A scratch off has fed me, right? So I tell that because I need people to understand, as someone who comes from that background, right? But also a financial advisor, I have to walk that fine line, and I think by telling the story, I'll encourage other people to tell their own.
Phil, this project is starting in Detroit, but you may expand it nationwide. How will you measure its effectiveness?
So Detroit is the proof of concept, and if we can have an impact and we can help people, again, with the very basics of budgeting, saving, what is an APR, what do you need to look for? If we can really make an impact, then we can build it out nationwide. What we're really trying to do is build a community of people in the financial services industry that want to get involved with us and help. And if anyone's watching, they want to get involved, reach out to Tyrone, reach out to me. We're trying to get people together so we can get the message out there and do the right thing.